Destiny. It is a curious phenomenon. Some consider it a pseudonym for a more understandable combination of chance and coincidence. Some do not believe in fate because of the observation that one outcome need not occur from one limited cause. But others say there is a predefined role for everyone, a role that everyone is bound to from birth, even before that. Link felt a pensive weight on his shoulders from the great Deku Tree. With his dying breath, he instructed him to travel to Hyrule's capital city to meet with Princess Zelda herself, to conspire against something tremulous that was apparently brewing. Link emerged from the clearing looking defeated. The shimmering stone still in hand, he was greeted by his fellow Kokiri, beginning with Saria. "How did it go?" she asked, shortly before changing her facial expression from excited to concern. Others were gathering, along with their fairies, noticing Link's flushed face. Mido was one of them, crossing his arms, looking apprehensive. "The great Deku Tree," Link choked, "is dead." A wave of murmur swept the crowd aghast. Someone was shouting out. It was Mido. "You killed him! What did you do?" Saria halted him. "He couldn't have killed him. Why would he?" "He was ill," Link put bluntly, still a worried look on his pale face. By now, most had noticed the smeared blade that Link had been dragging behind him until now. Mido spoke. "Is that the sacred blade of the Kokiri? How did you—" "The great Deku Tree gave it to me." He paused. He was gathering his muster back, preparing to make somewhat of a valiant speech. "Because he was sick." His face cringed. "Infested by a colony of huge insects," he shouted, holding out his hands to convey their tremendous size. He went on to tell the tale of the Queen, and how the Deku Tree knew that it wasn't just an unfortunate event of nature, but a malevolent curse thrust upon him by a very evil man. "He told me to leave the forest, to go to Hyrule Castle." "But no Kokiri has ever left the protection of the forest," someone rebuked. This was true. The great Deku Tree had always warned them to never stray beyond their forest for their own safety, and Link wondered why the tree now made an exception for him. Could this errand be that crucial? "Well, I guess I'm going to be the first." Link clutched the stone in his fist, and walked away with the last word. Later that day, around the time of dusk, Link sat in his home as he was gathering preparations for his journey. Link was sitting at his table, staring at the items laid in front of him. A small loaf of bread baked by his neighbor, a pile of Deku nuts he picked from the woods, a skin filled with some of the forest's spring water, the Kokiri sword he found within the great Deku Tree, the piece of bark he tore from his inside for protection, and most importantly, the emerald he bestowed to Link. Navi, who was resting on Link's shoulder, broke the solemn silence. "You prepare yourself, but you pack light. That is very resourceful of you." Link looked over at her, appreciating her aptitude for logistics and strategy. He figured she was going to be indispensable on this journey. "Thanks for your help back there," inside him. "The Deku Tree told me to guide you. I'm just doing his bidding," Navi replied. At that moment, Saria appeared in Link's doorframe with a knock. "Must you leave tonight? Can't you wait until morning?" Link acknowledged that his sense of urgency may have been augmented by the death of the Deku Tree, but he felt that the tree wanted him to hurry. "If you were talking to him, you'd understand," Link told her. "Besides, Navi here says it's a trip just longer than the light of day, and the city gates close at dusk." "Then I guess I must say goodbye now." Saria entered and joined Link at the table. "I'm glad to see your new fairy guiding you." Link smiled. He knew this was going to be the last time he would see Saria for a long time. She had been his only real friend for as long as he could remember. With these thoughts, his smile diminished. He began to pack the items into a small leather knapsack. When he got to the piece of bark, he paused. He got up and retrieved a bottle of red paint from one of his shelves. With Saria and Navi watching curiously, Link dipped his finger in the dye and carefully painted a spiral shape. The spiral of the emerald's crown, to be exact. The three stared solemnly at the sign of honor for the great Deku Tree that Link had just crafted. "Come walk with me," Link said to Saria, "to the very edge of the forest." "I was going to anyway," she replied. After leaving Link's one-room treehouse, Link got a few goodbyes and good lucks from some of the other Kokiri. He even saw Mido bow his head slightly. He and Saria walked through the clearing where their village stood, in the opposite direction of the late Deku Tree. They walked through an area thick with trees, close to the woods that are even thicker, referred to as the Lost Woods by the Kokiri. Being extremely difficult to navigate, the Lost Woods were almost never visited. Some of the Kokiri were familiar with select areas, especially Saria, who really knew most of them like the back of her hand. She and Link would often spend hours on end in the Lost Woods. Eventually, they came to a chasm with an old rope-suspended bridge over it. No Kokiri had ever crossed this point. This was the edge of their forest. Link and Saria stopped, and they looked at each other solemnly. Saria broke the silence. "I want you to have this," she told Link, arms extended with a light yellow clay ocarina in her hands. Link recognized it immediately. It was Saria's ocarina. She had become quite talented in playing it over the years. "Do you remember that day in the Lost Woods? When we got separated, and you were searching frantically because you had no idea where I went?" Saria asked, on the verge of tears. "Yes, I do," Link replied, starting to get teary-eyed himself. "You played a song on this ocarina, and I followed the sound until I found you. Do you remember that song?" "Yes, it became the song we used to signal when we were separated. It's been a long time since we've used it." "I know," she sobbed, smiling. "Do you remember when I taught you how to play that song on the ocarina?" "Yes. Do you think you could play it one more time?" Link paused. Although it had been a while, he could still hear the notes flowing through his eardrums. "I would love to." Link held his best friend's memento up to his mouth. He wrapped his lips around the mouthpiece, and he lightly blew the tune that Saria played years ago. Saria's eyes had been closed. She slowly opened them. They were filling with tears. "Remember that song, Link?" She came up and hugged him. "If you were ever lost." After they shared a long and sad hug, they came apart. After staring at each other for almost as long, Link silently turned around and crossed the bridge, with Navi tagging along on his shoulder. He could hear the faint whisper of Saria choking out, "Goodbye, Link."